Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
When you first saw the casting call for the role, what attracted you and caught your attention?
For me, the main thing that initially caught my attention was the fact that it was loosely based on Crime and Punishment, because I've just grown up knowing about Dostoevsky and my dad is a big Dostoevsky fan, so I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. I'm sure my dad would be interested in that. And then I think just it seemed intriguing. She's forced to make some kind of sacrifice, didn't know what that was, and she's hardworking, and yeah, I think it was just initially I wanted to know more about it. And then I remember actually there was a video on kind of the application. There's a video that Alessandro made talking about the character and what he wanted from the audition.
She will go from being a sole, kind-hearted person who's kind of victim of the system to become somebody that takes control of her actions and her decisions in order to do good for her family.
And it just seemed really thought through and precise, and yeah, like it was just being done very thoroughly. So I was like, oh, this seems very interesting.
We do see so many casting calls, so there must have been something within that's resonated with me, or I thought that certainly sounds like a challenge. I'm going to throw my glove in to see what happens.
I think what it was when I saw the casting call, it was the story really that attracted me. It wasn't necessarily the character at first. I just read the breakdown of the story and I just liked the sound of it. I wasn't sure at the time when I read it whether it was based on truth or based on things that had happened, but I think I thought maybe it is. So I just liked the story and I was interested to find out a little bit more really. I think normally I look at characters first and see what character it's offering me really, see if it's suitable. But I think it was mostly, the premise, and then when I scrolled to the character, which, Simon's sort of a secondary character really. He pops up now and again, but even though he's very significant. So then when I saw the character, I was like, okay.
I saw the job posted on a casting site, and I immediately knew it was one of my casting types. Every actor has an immediate casting type. One of mine is authority figures, good and bad hearts. Warm and cold hearts, let's put it like that. That's one of my main areas. So I just like the look of it. I like the idea of playing an academic, and it just sounded a really interesting project. And also the team sounded really interesting. They had good solid filming credits to their name, and they seemed like a solid team, a professional team to work with. Everything about it was very professional. So I'm a professional actor, why would I not want to work with a like-minded team? So yeah, that was my starting point.
You were the person who actually wrote us and proposed, can go gender blind, because I can see that I can portray this character. And it took us a little bit of time with Alessandro, because it's always hard when you have in your head some particular gender, and I was writing this screenplay having a man in my head. So first the idea was, it was not no, but it was somehow a bit weird feeling. But after some conversations with Alessandro, we decided, why not? Let's just at least try. Let's have both men, women applying and just see what will work better. And finally we chose you. I will start with Hannah. Questions to you. Her casting was very long compared to Katherine. It lasted several months. And we had so many applications. It's just unbelievable how many young women from across the UK wanted to portray Sonia's character. I enjoy telling people that we had 656 applications for Sonia. We first long listed 50 of them and asked them to record the self-tape. And then we shortlisted 15 actresses and invited them to online audition on Zoom. We needed to find someone whose portrayal of Sonia will be the closest to the vision which me and Alessandro had about the character. So we had another online audition, the second one, where we invited 4 actresses this time, and Hannah was one of them. And then finally we've chosen Hannah. So you read the screenplay after first audition. What did it change after you read the script and knew the whole story?
Well, it just made me way more invested and made me really, really want to play Sonia, because it was just a really, really great script and really engaging and emotional. And I thought her as it was just like, you could see that it would be an amazing opportunity to be able to play this character as a young actress, to have the chance to see her through the whole arc and try and get all the little details that are there in the script and aspects of her personality. So
the auditions for Katherine were over a shorter time period, but still we had several quite strong applications to choose from. And although Katherine is not the lead character and Transgressing is obviously Sonia's story, but we always perceived Sonia's stepmother as the second lead, and her character, I think, has incredible story arc. And I think you, Lindsay, brilliantly portrayed this story arc. So probably you understood the character much more after reading the whole screenplay compared to the first description when you did the self-tape.
Even from the initial sort of tape to when I was brought in to, on Zoom to audition kind of live, between those two moments, I feel as though the performance changed quite a lot because I was much more informed, and it's like Hannah says, is that initially when you have something, all you can do is go on instinct. If you don't have the full script, you just have to play on instinct. And then when you have everything else, go, okay, this is where I can really bring this character sort of to life. And that's the fun bit, discovering who that person actually is.
Can you tell us a little bit more how it was acting a drunk person?
The obvious thing is he had a problem with alcohol and was drunk a lot of the time. I think the key with portraying Simon was to give across that sadness that he had. Drunk people can be comedic, but this wasn't that type of drunk. This was a sad drunk, an unhappy drunk, someone who as well as drinking had other issues. So I didn't see any scope for bringing any sort of comedy into it, really. Even though I'm quite a comedy actor, I do a lot of comedy. I think that was another reason why I thought, this is something different. I can do something straight up. It's pure drama. I think you sort of had to feel sorry for him in a way, but also you wanted to say, pick yourself up, get yourself together, because your family are asking you to help. Your daughter, Sonia, is reaching out, but in fact, she's helping you rather than you help her.
Can you tell our followers a little bit more about the casting process itself?
I didn't have the whole script at first. I just had a couple of the scenes which I prepared and then I put on tape. There are some lines to say and you have a gut instinct about how to deliver those lines. But for me, I feel my job as an actor is to just make a little bit of an exploration into that. That's probably the thing that I love the most, is trying to make sense of it and to build a story in my mind that makes sense about why I say those lines or why there are stakes in it for me. The truth is, the sides as they're written, and actually the way I portrayed it, nobody will really know my backstory, but I know it. And we're never going to see it on screen. We don't actually know. And why do we really care about her? Well, there's a question mark over all that, but I had to care about her as an actor. I had to make those choices.
Hannah, my question to you, did Sonia feel believable to you? Because you're the same age as her, and how could you relate to her? Were there any similarities between you and Sonia, or did you just completely invent her for the screen following the script?
There were definitely similarities between me and her. Complete love for your family, real desire for them to be okay and to do what you can to help them. And she did feel believable, but something that I did have to spend time thinking about, and me and Alessandro worked on a lot, was making her realistic in the sense that she's not too perfect. She is endlessly giving, endlessly empathetic, endlessly understanding, and probably something that's a little less common in teenagers of today is just like completely being serving to your family and like foregoing any of your own needs and wants. So we had to try and make her realistic in the sense that she's not just perfect.
Lindsay, question to you. Can you share your initial feelings about the character of the stepmother?
There was a big sort of like a paradox with Katherine, because initially she's a character that you don't actually like. But then you think, why? Why don't I like her? Because she is quite angry and quite shouty and quite upset an awful lot of the time. But then for me, it was about finding the human in Katherine, like what makes me like her, because you've got to like the person that you're portraying. But she's ultimately just broken, and as the matriarch of a family who's desperately trying to hold it together, there was just an enormous amount of sadness with that. And that's what made me fall in love with Katherine. And she might not show, she might not be able to sort of externally show how she's feeling. The complexities of Katherine were so interesting as an actor to play. How she is with each of the children, how she is with, her husband, and all the different relationships that she has. And you don't see hardly any of that that's going on. It's not explained in the script or anything like that, but it was so nice to have all of that kind of inside here to play with, because it really does inform the way that you approach a character, especially, like I say, one that isn't particularly warm and bubbly.
How do you relate to Katherine, and what similarities you have with her?
Katherine and I are very different in so many ways. The way that Katherine responds to certain situations is probably the opposite of me. However, I did base Katherine on somebody that I know, somebody who's very, very close to me. And we spent a really, really long time together for me to understand more who she was. And that was really important for me because, the person I am, I would look at certain things that Katherine, or choices that Katherine would make, and think, I don't understand why you would do that. And so I needed to talk to people who were going through that. And that's exactly what I did, to kind of get a more informed idea of why Katherine makes those choices and what she does. There are tiny elements of things that Katherine does, about sort of being the matriarch and feeling the weight under pressure of that is quite similar to me. But in the most part, no, we are very opposite. I'm lovely, really.
Yes, you are. How do you feel about the character? What do you think about her? Trying to avoid spoilers, and are there any similarities, or did you completely invent her for the screen?
Well, there is absolutely no similarity between some of Blake's decisions and my own, but I empathised with her. I try not to judge her, because our job as actors is not to judge our characters and why we do the things we do, our characters' motivations. I definitely respected her in some respects, but not for what she does. But I understand that sometimes people do things because they They kind of do it for the right reasons, even though it's not necessarily the right thing. And also, we don't really know where people are coming from. We honestly don't know. We judge. It's so easy in life to judge, but we just don't know. And that was a choice that I made about it more than anything, was that I wasn't going to judge her.
You probably understand that some people might see her as antagonist. Was your goal to try to make her more human and less just a villainous person?
100%, absolutely. Yeah, because I think that is how human beings are. As an actor, I always look at that. I always look at the human being fully. Even the most monstrous person is a human being, and that's how we can help sort of navigate life, really, because we're all going to meet villains and whatever. But the moment we're black and white about it, I think we're a bit lost, really.
Barrie, can you anyhow relate to Simon, or did you completely just invent him for the screen?
I just had to, invent him from my mind. And I was surprised really that you asked me to audition, because when I first sort of read the character breakdown, I imagined him to maybe be quite overweight and like a bigger man maybe. But then as we got the script and the filming started, actually it made sense that probably, it was a man that probably carried himself well and, looked fine. However, this drink had just gotten hold of him. And I think the stereotype can go down the route of a overweight person who drinks a lot. I think that's quite stereotypical, so I think it's quite good that it was someone different.
You were the only main male character in the story, which is basically about let's say about 3 women.
Yeah.
So how did you feel being a supportive male, but also playing the character who is not very much likable?
Well, it's quite a female-led story. Usually, a lot of the time, a male character comes into it and is quite is an antagonist and is likable. Is unlikable for other reasons, whether he's a bully or whether he talks terrible to the women or whatever it is. Whereas this was different. This was a man who was very submissive to the women in the story. So that's what I found interesting.
Would you consider yourself anyhow feminist?
I wouldn't outrightly say I'm feminist, but I have strong values about equality, and especially in my industry, women directors, women writers. In this film, you've got a female writer and producer. You had a female DOP. You had a strong female cast. A lot of the crew were female, which I don't think I've experienced that before. I think it's been more male-led, which has always been the norm, I suppose. For many years, it's always been very male-dominated. And it was nice to see that everybody was so professional and so nice. Not that they wouldn't be, but it was a very professional unit, and everyone knew what they were doing, and which is good, because believe me, I've done short films in the past where no one knows what they're doing.
Although we couldn't meet in person for rehearsals because all the actors were from all around the country, and also we had COVID on top of this, so all rehearsals were happening online. So can you tell us a little bit more about your experience of working with Alessandro as a director?
Well, we initially started with Sonia as a character, just working her out, understanding her, getting to know her, and then went through the script, literally scene by scene, working out what she wanted in the scene, what was going on in the scene, what she was feeling in the scene, everything. So it was very helpful in creating her through line from the start to the finish.
How long was your rehearsal? I think it was about a month. You were meeting every week.
Yeah, weekly for hours, and just talk about every aspect of her and what's led her to this point, her past experiences, her relationships with her mum, with Katherine, with her dad, her sister, what she wants in life, what she wants from her studies, and everything. Is very, very, very useful.
I've never done that kind of process where you deep dive line by line your character. And at first, I was a bit resistant to it. And I think the reason why I was resistant to it, not because it was wrong, it was just because it was different. And it was a totally different process to how I would normally work. And once I kind of stopped resisting it, I actually really started enjoying kind of the process of going, oh, right, now I've taken kind of this out of the equation, I can actually realise why we're deep diving into this. And Alessandro was so generous with the amount of feedback he'd let me give. Do you know what I mean? If I said, now I've got to know Katherine a bit, I'm not quite sure she would say that. Or, you know, and he was, and we would agree and disagree on a fair few things. And it was nice to have that kind of relationship with the director, that you are being listened to, but also, you know, you are challenged as well.
I really enjoyed working with Alessandro a lot, and I felt we were very much on the same page. It was a very fluid session that we did online together through Zoom. Not every decision was made, but quite a lot of the anchored decisions were made. So I could go away and learn the script and have some solid things to play with it within that we both agreed on, that we felt comfortable about. And there were a couple of things I think that we left later at the end, partly because I think getting that end of the script was quite challenging. It had to make sense to everybody. It was a very positive experience, and I felt set ready. And I did have some time with Hannah, I think. And we had a read online, and that was great. The chemistry was really good. I don't think Zoom is the best for us actors. I found it very difficult, especially table reads and stuff. It's really hard because you can't bring any subtlety in. You have to kind of perform maybe bigger than you'd want because no one can hear you.
I think I probably had a couple of hours with him, maximum. And I think we got to how Simon's character would be very quickly between us, because I had already sort of discovered him in the cell tapes of the audition, so I think we were both on the same page from the beginning. He was asking me all sorts really about Simon, you know, and I was saying, right, okay, I haven't really thought about that, so I'd think, and then I'd go, well, I suppose, and then I'd not done that for a long time with a director. Sometimes, especially with filming, sometimes directors just, you're in, you film, that's it, move on, where he sort of wanted to get to the essence of the character. So I found that really interesting. And also that he was just a really nice guy, which is always helpful. Because again, in this industry, you, as you probably know, sometimes you don't get very nice people. He was very respectful, but also knew what he wanted, which was good. You know, sometimes directors don't know what they want, and they look to the actors. You know, they ask the actors on set, and what do you think? But he knew where we were going, but was still open to you making suggestions.
From my perspective as a producer, who obviously wants to film be made in time and into the tight schedule and not going over time, and it was quite a challenging filming, as you know, I felt that if you wouldn't have had those rehearsals before, probably the shooting would take much longer if you were discussing the characters on set. But I was feeling, from what I saw on set, that all the actors actually knew what they are doing. So apart from blocking, Alessandro didn't have much work to do with you, because all of you were already in characters and in their inner world and understanding them. When you both read the screenplay for the first time, the character of Professor was a male character. What do you both think about us changing the gender of the character, if you can, without spoilers?
I think it's adds so much more complexity to the situation. It makes it much more interesting, in my opinion, and less black and white. And I think Emily played Professor Blake so well, and I don't know, it just makes it so much more interesting, in my opinion. And I'd never even considered that Blake could be a woman. And when I first saw that initial Facebook page post suggesting it, I was like, oh, that's kind of weird, but I think it was a really good idea. It makes it a lot more complex.
I would completely agree. I was so happy having read the script already, and then finding out that you'd done a gender blind casting and you'd actually cast a female into the role. I was so happy because it just added such a wonderful layer of complexity to what was going on with those dynamics, and it also made basically a wonderful triangle of these women all working together, all working separately.
Perfect casting, I think. And also added to that dynamic of a female-led cast with a submissive male character thrown in. So, yeah, I thought, from what I saw of Emily, I thought she played it really well.
And I knew, especially sort of once I'd met her, that Emily was going to do a fantastic job. Like, she literally just knew exactly who she wanted to play and how she wanted to play it. Yeah, so I think it was a really good move.
Can you tell a little bit more to our followers how hard it was to work in COVID times compared to normal times filming?
It was okay. Because I feel like the whole crew and cast just kind of became a bubble, and we were testing regularly and people wearing masks. I don't like when people wear masks because it does kind of feel like it's harder to connect to people when you can't see their whole face, and then they take it off 3 days later and you're like, wow, I didn't even know you looked like that. But yeah, I think we managed pretty well with it.
Other than the crew wearing masks, it didn't feel like there was, it was under COVID conditions at all. It was, to me, it was it just felt like a normal job. Other than being, trapped in a house for a couple of days, it genuinely was really normal. And again, part of that normality is you're used to seeing people with masks on.
It was fine. It wasn't the first COVID shoot I'd done, so I was kind of getting the hang of it by now. And just respecting that there are guidelines to follow, and we all had to do that. So I think it's like anything, isn't it? It's been such a challenging time, but now everybody's sorted themselves out, and there are some sort of rules around how everybody works. I think that I didn't feel unsafe at all. I felt absolutely fine. And probably I'm double vaxxed anyway. By the time I think I came, I'd already double vaxxed. So I felt fine about it. And I couldn't see that it had any strong implications on the shoot at all. Everybody just did what they had to do and got on with their jobs.
Not really much difference, no. We are putting ourselves at more risk because that's the nature of the industry, and the nature of it is that you work in close proximity with people, whether that be in rehearsals or filming or on stage or whatever. But that's the choice you make, I suppose. You either do it or you don't. I suppose if it was last year, 2020, when it all really kicked off, nothing was happening anyway. Nothing was being cast, nothing was filming, nothing was being performed. It just, as you know, it all shut down. But if things were happening then, I think I would have been a bit more reluctant then to go out.
You first met other actors during our online table read, and then you met them obviously on set. So how did other members of cast fit your expectations of the characters?
I think because I saw a lot of the tapes for Katherine and Simon and Polly, I already knew what was coming. Whereas if I hadn't even seen who was playing Katherine or anyone, it would have been more of a surprise.
I cheated, so I already knew who was cast and everything because it was on the Facebook page. So, because I like to know before I get anywhere who's doing what, and et cetera, and so I already knew what people looked like. So I can't really answer the question because I couldn't imagine them being anybody else than who they were.
Yeah. No surprises there, I think, for me. I think it was just enjoyable, if anything. I mean, obviously I'm not privy to the scenes apart from the ones that I'm in. So that's what's fun, isn't it, for us, is that we get to then see everybody else's performance once the film is assembled into a final cut. And that sort of thing. So I think for me, I just felt like I was around solid actors, and that's always good. I felt everybody was well cast, and it was very, very easy, very fluid. It really wasn't a challenging shoot in that sense. I've been on ones which have been, and so you kind of start to learn to know the difference.
Surprising for me, I didn't know how the main character Sonia. I didn't know how she was going to sort of play it. But then watching her when we were filming, I was like, yes, this is exactly what she's like. She just played it really well. She played that in charge. I've got to take charge of this family. I've got to be strong. I think she just did it really well. So she definitely met all my expectations.
If you're attentive enough while watching Transgressing in future, you will notice a family photo of younger Katherine and Simon on the wall of the living room. This production design image was not a Photoshop result. It is an actual photo made by actors years ago before shooting Transgressing.
I know you already were playing with Barrie before in a different film, like about 5 or 6 years ago it was?
Yeah, it was a long time ago, yeah.
Were you also husband and wife there?
Yeah.
So how was your family dynamics? Because I guess it was different.
It was really different because in the previous one we were really well off. So it couldn't be any different, really. It was just really nice, and when you're working alongside people, it's really, really lovely to work with people that you've worked with before because you already have that connection, even though we're so used to building up relationships really quickly, on set. And that's why actors become really close to each other very quickly because we have to. We might spend a day together or 2 weeks together, but, what normally those social barriers that are put up with most people, just ordinary folk, we have to break those down really quickly because we might be kissing in 5 hours. So we need to kind of, you know what I mean? So you have to sort of break down those barriers really, really quickly. But yeah, barriers just we keep popping up in each other's lives, which is wonderful.
How this family couple relationship was different from the previous one you portrayed?
The previous one was a husband and wife who were very happy and had a wholesome family, and it was all lovely and life was great, and it was all quite commercial and on the surface, really. Whereas obviously this was the complete opposite, where I saw a different side to Lindsay, playing, a wife, a mother. However, I'd seen that other side to Lindsay because we also worked on another film where I wasn't in the cast. I was the first AD and also the script editor on it. And that's how I first met Lindsay, because she was one of the main characters. It was a horror film. So she was playing quite I think she was a doctor who was addicted to her own drugs that she prescribed, yes. And she was quite a complicated character, and I think she ended up getting killed in the film. But that's how I met Lindsay, from me being on the other side of the camera. And then after that, it was just coincidence we both got cast in something else as husband and wife. But it was a completely different experience to this. But I think she's an excellent actress, Lindsay. I really do. I think she comes across on screen amazing.
Yeah, I agree with you completely.
She's really good. She just plays. She's just got a subtle way of how she plays things. Anyway.
Well, hopefully everyone will see it soon in our film.
Yeah.
How did collaboration on set with other actors, did it change anyhow your character, which you prepared before the filming?
I wouldn't say so for me, because I think me and Lindsay spoke before about the dynamic between Sonia and Katherine. I think everyone knew what they were playing before they got there, so it didn't feel like there were any major surprises. But it's always different when you're actually with someone in the room and responding to what's happening. But yeah, it was nothing major for me.
I think it was about building that trust that we'd already built up prior to being on set together. And then when you are on set, you are very quickly sort of thrown into these environments. But we'd build up a relationship sort of beforehand and spent a little bit of time together beforehand. And I think that once you know you can absolutely trust the other actors that you're working with, then really, really great things can happen, you know, for your character. And sometimes you can surprise yourself. But I never felt as though my character choices were being, there was no resistance towards them. Like, I didn't have to sort of change who Katherine was for anybody else, no.
Yeah, we chatted in between scenes and just sort of asked each other questions. Well, what do you think you'd be thinking when we're doing this, or what would what would you say or do? So we asked it. We made sure we all knew we were on the same page, which is always good as actors before the camera starts rolling. If you can chat about what's coming up, you know, do you think I might put my hand on your arm? Do you think I might look at you like this? You know, whatever it is. And the other actor might say, yeah, do that, let's try that. Or, no, I don't think you would actually. So there was a little bit of that between us before we started shooting the scenes, which was good.
You had quite a few scenes with Hannah. Can you say that working with her in person, like seeing her eyes, her acting, how much did it impact your character?
No, I think it was just a real joy to work with Hannah. I think she's a natural player. Also with her character, again without any spoilers, you know, I see a transformation in her character because she's one Hannah and then, she's not Hannah, she's one Sonia, and then she has to very quickly become another. And it was really lovely to be able to play with her, play scenes with her before the incident. I won't say what it is, and then after the incident. So to be able to step over with her into her arc is great. You know, it's really, really lovely.
Some actors prefer to go into their character, and sometimes they even lose themselves a little bit, and it's a bit hard just to switch it and go back to become yourself. Is it about you, or is your approach to acting different?
I think for me, when a scene is going really well, you forget that it's like some scenes it's impossible to really get lost in it if you're just like walking into a room saying bye and leaving. But when it gets, especially between you and someone else, it feels like it's going well when you're able to forget that you are acting and you do feel like you are that character. And I think you kind of can't manufacture that. That just happens when you're bouncing off someone in the moment. That's always what you're kind of aiming to get, or I'm always aiming for.
But when this scene ends, and like cut, and what, are you easily going back and becoming Hannah, or is there any aftermath of being Sonia?
I think I can like snap out of it pretty fast, to be honest. It doesn't like maybe you have a feeling of like, whoa, I felt a bit lost then, that was really intense. But it's never like I'm like when cut is cool, I'm not like, who am I? You know, like I always know that was me and I was just doing something else.
I'm very curious to hear what Lindsay will say, because from my experience, coming back to the fact that you said that you're a very nice person, that was my experience, that you're a very nice person. But to be honest, sometimes bumping into you on set was really scary for me. I was like trying not to touch you, not to talk with you. So I felt that you are Katherine, actually, not Lindsay.
That isn't always my process. But for me, with this film, it really needed to be, because Katherine's levels and emotional levels were very complex. And when you're working in a very small environment, you can be really easily distracted. There's a lots of crew, you know, and you've got this bubble that you have to concentrate on. So I found, and I have done this in other films, but particularly worked very well with Katherine, is I would have to zone out. And there's quite a few photographs. I've noticed a few photographs where you can actually see where I can't look at anyone and I literally have to zone into sort of one spot, because before we're going into a take, to me, if I just go into a take and my level goes from this to this, that to me is pretending. You know, I have to work up to where that is. And part of that is, literally just being very, very insular and very micro-focused on that point. It's almost a point where you can't hear anything that's going on. You can't see anything that's going on.
I think it also is like where your character's base level is. Because Catherine's base level is so tense and stressful, like you have to sit at around that level, and then Sonia's at a relatively neutral base level most of the time when, she's more upbeat, I think.
I didn't feel that I had to go into too much of a dark place, or I didn't feel I had to do a really crazy thing for Blake. I just had to remember I just had to enter into what I was playing. And it shouldn't be, if you've prepped, it shouldn't be such a dramatic thing. But some things take a bit more energy because they're so, referring to that last big piece of work, it wasn't natural what I was having to do, but yet it had to seem very natural. But what I did for Blake was probably quite naturalistic.
I'm not really an actor who does that, who sort of sticks as that character all the way when filming. I will, once I've done it, I'll stop, because then I just become me, so I can evaluate what I'm doing, and then I'll jump back in. So that's the way I approach things. I like to step back away from it and then go straight back in. But I know. I don't think Lindsay was doing this, but I think a lot of actors are the type of actors who literally they arrive and they are being the character until they leave, which I think is quite intense, quite hard, I think, to keep it up.
What was the hardest scene for you to play from the whole film?
All I would say is the saddest scene to play. I wouldn't call it the hardest scene to play, or the one where I felt was very sad, was her final scene, definitely, in the car, because I think she experiences a sense of loss. That's all I'm going to say. And also there's a sense of loss and shock, but there was no time to really play that too much. It was probably just a moment of it, and depending what the edit is, I don't know how much you'll see. But it wasn't a very big. I didn't portray a huge full stop there or a huge amount of it. But when I look back, I think that for me as a character, that in that arc of my character, that's where I would have felt it the most.
For me, it was the final scene, which we can't really say anything about. A very emotional scene, which it was like required becoming really emotional, but Alessandro wanted it to happen in a very specific way. And we'd rehearsed it a lot and it had been fine, but then on the day sometimes it just feels, I think I felt a lot of pressure about that scene and nervous about it, and it can make you just feel like just overthink it and worry about it too much. But yeah, it was the final scene for me. It was the hardest.
It will actually be the same as Hannah's, that final scene. Over the course of the filming, I suppose quite naturally became very protective of Hannah, and we'd grown very close over a short amount of time. And even though most of the time when we're on screen together, we don't get along, we got on really well when we weren't on screen. And so I knew the weight of that scene that was coming up for her, and I knew how much of a challenge it was. And so I was almost kind of a little bit motherly in a sort of a natural way, motherly and overly protective of Hannah. And I think in so many ways, in the final moments of that scene, all that was informed by, it informed the performance, because there was just something so ultimately honest about that ending, that it's never ever happened to me before. But again, where I completely lost myself in those moments. And it was actual real feelings and not acting feelings. Do you know what I mean? There was, and it actually took me quite a bit of time to decompress from that. Do you know what I mean? Because it was real tears. It was real, like trying to sort of keep it down inside. So yeah, I needed sort of some time away by myself, and I don't normally have that. And so that was the most challenging for me, for two completely different reasons.
Hannah, am I right that you were a little bit improvising in this scene and did something that you didn't plan before in the rehearsals? Was it?
Yeah, it just felt natural. And it's kind of like, it's like an instinctive thing. And then I kind of hadn't realised I'd done anything, and everyone was like, did you know, like, that happened? I was like, oh.
I know you both haven't seen this scene, but I've seen it and I can confirm that it's very powerful, like very powerful. Although we had such a tense story and tense filming, do you remember maybe any fun moments on set you had? Or was everything just tense, hard work from beginning to the end?
I feel like I had a lot of fun on set. The actors' room was great fun. I find being on set to be an extremely enjoyable place. Even when the subject matter is dark, sometimes it's lighter when you're not in the scenes, because everyone's trying to stay sane and keep the mood lifted.
I'd say the only funny thing was I just kept eating everything in the green room. There were just things there. I just kept grabbing things and eating. And then I just sort of told myself, said, okay, stop now. Because you do that when you wait till the rail, you just,
The way that I saw it, it was very much separate. As soon as you came out of the green room, you were in this kind of very dark environment. And that's nothing about the crew. It's just about how the whole thing was set up. And it was quite depressing. And so I feel as though, especially in the green room and outside of work, we tried to lift each other up, as much as kind of possible, and be our silly selves, because Barrie is really daft. I'm nothing like Katherine, and it was nice to have those moments of light when there was a lot of dark. So, and I think actors just naturally find that, especially if you're working on a dark subject matter, is that we can be especially naughty and fun when no one's looking.
Try to think of one scene you were happy and one scene you didn't have enough time, and if you had more, you think you would have done better.
Alessandro didn't necessarily need to give us notes on like the character and what we wanted. It was just blocking, and then once everything worked mechanically and we got the beats, we moved on because we just had so little time. And I think for me, I always want to do it again and try again, especially like certain scenes where Sonia's woken up or like she's shocked, because that's just something that is difficult to make really seem really natural.
There's not one or two in particular that I can think of. I just felt that sometimes there were some scenes that we moved on. I go, I was just kind of warming up to that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm warming up to this. You think, if I'd had a bit of more of a run up, we wouldn't know, where it would go to. I think just the logistics of time with independent film, you're always against the clock. But if you've got it, haven't you? So
yeah, that's the big difference with the theater, when you can constantly work on your character and develop, and in the film, and especially with a low budget film when time is money, you have 1-2 takes and that's it. We're moving on, and what you've done will be in the film. Yeah,
and it's about just trusting that Alessandro knows what he wants and he knows what we can do, and if he's got it, he's got it. But I feel like as an actor, you always just want more time.
You're absolutely right as well. You think, I'm coming from a perspective as well, because I make films, is that sometimes that you've got the right take. You've got it, and I think sometimes you think, if I push this actor a bit too much, it's going to affect the rest of the day.
If I can be brutally honest with you, I would love to have been able to show a little bit more about what her stakes were. I'd love to be able to, I know we had that hint, but I would love to have been able to give the audience an opportunity possibly to have some sense of empathy for my character. And I'm not sure if they will, because I don't think that was the emphasis of the film, and it's not my film. It's Sonia's story and her family's story, and so I think Emily, as an actor, I would love to have had maybe another scene or something, or a scene on my own where I have a chance to reveal more of my life, or we have a chance to understand a bit more about Blake's motivations.
I think the only scene which I would have liked to have actually tried and actually filmed, but it was just my voice, was the scene, when I'm shouting up at the window when I'm drunk. Because that was probably the point in the film where I was the drunkest. So, for want of a better word, probably annihilated at that point. So I'd come home really drunk. I would have liked, and I think we planned to do this in rehearsals when I was talking with the director, we planned to actually film that from the window and maybe coming outside. But we ran out of time to do that. I would have liked to have tried that, and just to see how that would have gone and how that would have looked. But you can't have everything.
That's a hard question, because as an actor, you shouldn't be watching yourself as you're doing it. You should be in it. And the moment you start watching yourself, or standing outside of yourself and watching yourself, is kind of a no-no for an actor, because we should just enter into it. And the rest is done by everybody else. It's done by the camera, it's done by the hair and makeup. We shouldn't have to worry about anything except entering into the performance.
I know many actors prefer, you made the character, finished filming, and then you go to your life and try to forget about it before you see it on the screen. Is it about you as well?
I suppose what keeps reminding me is social media, sort of Twitter and things, so I keep seeing things, and then liking things and retweeting. With regards to, I'm not a massive fan of watching myself, really. I never have been, so I can take or leave watching myself. But if I'm invited to a premiere and I can go, I will go. But if it's something on TV or anything like that, I can. Sometimes I don't really want to watch.
I know how hard you've worked on the project and how much the team has been working at it for a while, and there's been a lot of energy that's gone into it. So if anything, I just felt really happy that I had a chance to play a part within the film and with the team. And I'm really proud of that. And so for me, it's more than anything, it's gratitude, it's appreciation. I'm always appreciative of any team that brings me onto their projects, because I know that there's always lots of choice out there. And so it's always great when you're the one,
Usually, normally, once I finish a project, it's, you have to kind of put it away. And then, to see sort of updates and see, your excitement with, yours and Alessandro's about saying that the trailer's coming out and all that kind of thing. And it gets us really excited all over again. But we've got no idea how it's going to look. And in that, in every project that you do, there is a little piece of you that's left in there. And sometimes it's just really nice to see what that piece was.
I feel like I kind of put it out of my brain. Like it's funny actually thinking that one day it will be finished and it will come out. But when I think about that, it makes me kind of nervous. But I'm excited as well. But more nervous than excited, I would say.